Tough Topics with Tricia. Discussing issues important to the KU community. And now, your host, Tricia.
Hi, thanks for listening to this new show that KUR is introducing. It is called Tough Topics. My name is Tricia Gillot. I am a graduate assistant over at the Women's Center. And I'm a graduate student in the counseling program. And today I have with me Dr. Fennelly, and she can introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Kristina Fennelly. I am a faculty member in the English department and also get the opportunity to teach some WGS courses here at Kutztown. Should I say any more about myself?
Sure, you can say however much you would like.
Originally from New Jersey, went off to college in upstate New York at Skidmore College, where I minored in women's studies. So that was my first formal entry point into the field. And I'm thrilled to be able to do that kind of work here at KU as well.
Super cool. I'm glad you're here with me today. I originally wanted this show to be more of an introduction to some of the tough topics that we're going to talk about. So roughly the purpose of the show was to talk about some issues that are happening for women and for the LGBTQ population. So this show I designed to be more of an introduction, like I said. So we're going to introduce some terms, some definitions. We'll have a little bit of chat about, toxic masculinity. What does that look like? Why is that an issue for us? This show will be airing every first Thursday of the month from 2 to 3. And then we will eventually be able to post the podcast version on the Women's Center website. So if you're not able to listen live, that's okay. We'll have it in another version on our website. So that's super cool. Before we really get into the actual show, I do want to do a little plug for the Women's Center and the GLBTQ Resource Center for some upcoming events for us. So for the Women's Center, this Saturday, actually, we are doing an It's On Us Day at the KU football game. So if you want to show your support for It's On Us, which is a national organization that focuses on how to stop sexual assault on college campuses, come out and support. We have KU shirts that you can receive if you take the pledge for It's On Us that you could wear to the football game. We also have an info night for It's On Us because we just recently opened the It's On Us chapter to the whole student body. So if you want to learn more about that, come see us on Tuesday, September 10th from 8 to 9 in Old Main 123. And then the following Tuesday is the screening of The Hunting Ground. FMLA is the organization that puts that on every year. So if you're interested in seeing that, that's a documentary on rape culture on college campuses and stories of how it has affected 5 women. That is showing Tuesday, September 17th from 6 to 8 p.m. in MSU 183. And then for the GLBTQ Resource Center, here are some events that are happening there. We have Pride Fest coming up on Thursday, September 12th from 3 to 6 on the DMZ. Kutztown is having their first annual Pride Fest on South Campus. Student Government Board, KUR, Allies, LDZI, and the Center invite you to join this Festival Pride celebration that will kick off with special guest speakers, include lots of games and giveaways, music, activities, live performances, and conclude with a walk of solidarity. Come out and show your support. We also, on Wednesday, September 18th, will have an LGBTQ&A. This event is a panel discussion to bring awareness to gender identity, and sexual orientation. You can come learn about those things in a safe and welcoming environment. Like I said, that is Wednesday, September 18th from 6 to 8 p.m. in AF 103. So those are some upcoming events that are happening. So I guess we will get to the meat of this show, which is introducing some things that maybe not everyone is aware of or kind of just wants to know more about or saw it on Facebook and was like, what is this? I want to start by asking, why is a show like this important? Why is it a cool opportunity that KUR approached me about this and wants to have this kind of content being put out to the university?
Well, I primarily teach argument writing in my classes, and one thing that both student comments and the readings tend to show is we're not always comfortable having healthy disagreements and healthy debates and talking about those tough topics that, I think you have in mind for a show like this. So I do think it's important that students especially know these types of conversations are happening, and happening in productive ways, as opposed to what we might see on typically cable news networks, where there are often polarizing debates, two-sided type of formats, good or bad, right and wrong. I think the topics that you have in mind for this show have a lot more complexity and nuance to them, and that isn't always given the appropriate space really in our culture at large. So I'm thrilled to hear that it's going to be in a podcast form eventually for students to be able to use as future resources, and start to listen to how others can constructively work through some of the details of these topics, because I don't imagine for a second that any of us have it all figured out. We are still grappling with what is intersectional feminism, or what does toxic masculinity look like. And, as I think we can get into in more detail about, some of the faculty here at KU have tried to go out into the larger media sphere, and their ideas are ignored or reduced to 2-minute sound bites, or they're quickly shut down. And so I do see this as an opportunity for faculty and students and staff to listen, to either join in the conversation, to have these conversations on their own after listening to a show like this. It really comes at, I think, a very pivotal point, especially, not to get too political, but especially as we do start heading into yet another election cycle, where those conversations need to be meaningful and need to reflect a dialogue and not just an argument or a fight.
I totally agree, and I think that makes a really good point in why I felt like this is needed too, and it's that when you go onto Facebook, you are going to see very similar things to your views, because you are very selective in how what friends you're adding on your Facebook, and what people you're deleting if they're posting things that you don't necessarily agree with. Right. I have some friends on my Facebook that I know don't agree with my views, and I don't necessarily agree with theirs, and I've consciously have chosen to keep them as a friend on my Facebook, because we both need to see each other's content. Absolutely. We both need to be objective, and my side isn't always going to be the right side, and their side isn't always going to be the right side. And we are in a really politically charged environment right now. Yeah. And I think that the more people can have access to conversations like this in an objective way that maybe just provoke their thought a little bit is perfect. And
the echo chambers are huge.
Oh, they really are.
You mentioned.
Yeah.
They're wild in a way. And at least for me, part of one assignment that I do with students is to get them out of those echo chambers by doing content analyses of comment threads. There's always the warning, don't read the comments, right? Yeah. And that's true in a sense if you are trying to have a good day, if you're trying to preserve your sanity and your belief in
you don't want to get upset at 12 p.m.
And then there's a way in which you do find yourself, as you said, scrolling through your Facebook feed or encountering an idea that you sort of bristle at. And to move just from that knee-jerk reaction, I think, to a more deliberate attempt at conversation is huge. So I couldn't be happier that you're doing a show like this.
Super cool. Let's backtrack a little bit. We'll actually start defining some of the stuff, because we've already started mentioning things that maybe you're not aware of. Let's go back to define what an echo chamber is. Not everybody is aware of what that looks like and what that means.
I think the model you use about having a Facebook feed or having any kind of space, whether it's digital or physical, where you've surrounded yourself with like-minded views is the best definition I can give of an echo chamber, where you spout an idea and it bounces around right back to you as an echo would. You're not introduced to anyone questioning those views, anyone pushing you to think about it in a different way, offering alternative perspectives. It's just your belief system, your way of seeing the world that dominates these echo chambers. I think that, maybe another good example is your family. Sometimes that's where it originates from. You're raised with a certain mindset or a certain political belief. So, well, we've always voted Republican or we've always voted Democratic. That would be a good example of an echo chamber. But I think now, as you mentioned, since we do live in such politically charged times, we're finding that some of those groups, like our family or our groups of friends, are diversifying a little bit more. And that, I think, tends to happen in unexpected ways. Someone that I may have always known as a liberal thinker, maybe super liberal, right? Maybe so outside of what I normally imagined. And that's good. That's a good, opportunity for me to learn a different view, or someone that I just sort of pigeonholed as a conservative, maybe conservative on some issues, but liberal on others. So I like to find those moments of the in-between, where people are occupying multiple spaces and not just lumped into one category that the echo chamber would have us believe exists in isolation.
Yeah. I feel like understanding how an echo chamber works is really important when you're going to have, if you're going to have conversations about toxic masculinity and white supremacy and feminism in general, because they have also those terms that now they're kind of like buzzwords, and they can really create some serious reactions from people that are maybe misunderstanding what they mean. So what's feminism? What is that? Like, who is a feminist? Like, what does that look like?
I always start with the personal definition of feminism for me, which is about broadening equality to all kinds of people. It's not just, I think we tend to look at feminism as wanting to best men or subvert the patriarchy or be equal to men, but I think feminism is really rooted in issues of social justice and widespread concern, while also very much at the same time making sure that women in particular are recognized, given more opportunities, brought into a conversation, not silenced. I have my kind of origins or roots in feminism in bell hooks. She's the one I automatically think of. She's a great introduction to some of the topics I think that we'll be discussing today. And for her, feminism is grounded not just in the identity of what it means to be a woman in our culture, but what it means to be an African American woman, what it means to be a first-generation college student, what it means to be a public intellectual who consistently questions and demands that the status quo readjust itself, so that we're breaking out of power structures which have proved way too limiting for far too long. So over the years, my feminism has evolved to take into account all of those different stakeholders that I think intersectional feminism reflects. And for me, that has been a learning curve of figuring out not only what intersectional feminism is, but what it looks like. So
that is a great point. I mean, for me, when I was a sophomore in my undergrad, I believe it was, when I took my first Intro to Women and Gender Studies course, and I don't know why, but when I was talking to my one friend, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to identify as a feminist.
Right.
And then he was like, do you want equal rights for everybody? And I was like, yeah. He was like, then you're a feminist. Like, it's really not that like difficult, and it's really not that like it. And I think that's like, for me, the most simplest definition of
Yes.
it, is that you just want everyone to have equal access and equal rights
Yes.
to, the people that take up the most space. But now I have definitely also gotten tripped up on intersectional feminism and what it means to be intersectional, especially because my privilege has really granted me spaces and just a voice that not everybody has. And so let's define what intersectional feminism is. That's something that I've always found to be difficult to kind of conceptualize.
Well, I'm glad you touched on the aspect of privilege, because it definitely took me a while to see it. I may have understood it from a theoretical position, but much like you, when I was in college, I started to wonder, in addition to, am I a feminist? Well, what kind of feminist do I want to be? And so I had this conversation with my best friend, and very quickly she said, I don't identify as a feminist. And I said, why? And she said, well, I'm all for the equal rights. She was already on board with that, and I've known her since I was 6, so I knew that part of her. There was no way she was trying to champion the patriarchy. But she admitted something that she had never admitted before, and that I had never thought to consider, which was that she said, as a Black woman, I don't feel as if feminists have always represented me historically. And so that definitely led to not just a conversation that day, but many conversations since about, even within the realm of feminism, who gets represented. So for me, intersectional feminism has come to mean broadening a field, a discipline, a cultural space where it more fully and consciously takes into account aspects related to social identity that may include race, they may include disability, they may include socioeconomic position, which, again, to go back to that privilege, I'm not sure if everyone is always consciously aware of, right? Just even sitting in a space like this and being able to do this as part of our work and our time is reflective of that privilege. So once I started to talk with her a little bit more about whose interests are represented when and how, it definitely opened my eyes, and we've exchanged Bell Hooks's book since then. We've exchanged other texts that more fully encompass what that experience means. And I think, again, that term intersectional feminism is going to come up again as we move into the next election, to think about who is representing our interests and how, and who is silencing a lot of voices that are out there that should be taken into account. So my short definition of intersectional feminism is broadening that space that accounts for positions of privilege and also welcomes some silence and oppressed voices that we haven't been paying attention to in quite some time.
I think it definitely makes sense that we've gotten to a space now where we are just being more intersectional. I mean, feminism has mostly been white females. And I think for the times that they were really thriving, that was it was important then. That was what was needed at that time. And now we are in a space, we're in 2019 going into 2020. And I think we are in a place now where we do need to start thinking about who is being represented and how their voices are, like, how what they're bringing to the table, and that they deserve a seat at the table. Because a Black woman's experience is definitely going to be different than mine. And it's not fair for me to talk about that experience because it's not my experience.
Right. So. And that, I think, is equally important, is stop speaking for others even when we are in these positions of power or we are in public positions, and really start to recognize some of those voices that either have been deliberately silenced or that have been socially conditioned to remain silent. I'll give you sort of another way of thinking about it. I grew up in the 80s, and so for me, feminism was alive and well. I saw my mother go off to work every day. I never once questioned what I could or couldn't do. And now in recent years, I think we're backtracking. And so I worry that what I grew up taking for granted is not being experienced by younger generations and isn't being experienced by other groups.
Yeah. And I can only imagine the change that you've seen over the years too. Like going along with that
Right.
change is probably hard because
It is.
when you're used to a certain type of anything, really,
Yeah.
we as our brains do not like change. We are fundamentally built to not want to change because
Right.
it's too hard. Our brains are like, no, thank you.
Yep.
So
It is,
I'm sure
yeah.
that's been an interesting time. And the
It has.
curriculum.
Yes, absolutely. Seeing those changes are ones that we're going to have to contend with, and we're going to have to contend with them head on because they're not going away. So
They are not. They are here to stay. Well, we are going to take a break. We'll be back shortly. You're listening to Tough Topics with me, Trisha, and this is on KUR.
Hey there, Golden Bears. Eric
Allie?
and Sam.
from the Career Development Center here to let you in on a big sale happening soon. If you're in the need for some professional outfits, aren't we all, then head on over to the JCPenney in the Lehigh Valley Mall on Sunday, September 15th from 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. The store will be open to KU students, alum, faculty, staff, and family. 60% off selected men and women's professional attire and accessories. You can even sign up for a shuttle if you don't have a ride. Just drop on by Stratton 113 to reserve your spot. See you there.
Hey KU, it's Sam,
Eric?
And Allie.
here again from the Career Development Center. Mock interview mania is around the corner, and now's your chance to practice your interview skills with a volunteer interviewer. You might look great on paper, but how you interview is the true test. Remember, good interviewing is a skill. Sign up on Handshake now for a spot. Dates are September 16th through September 19th. But be quick, this popular event fills up quickly.
Checking KU headlines, Kutztown University has been featured as one of the best in the Northeast by the Princeton Review for 2020. The education services company is widely known for its test prep programs and college and graduate school guides. KU is among 224 institutions named to the regional list and has been named to the list more than a dozen times in the last 20 years. The Best in the Northeast list is compiled via drawing upon information from surveys taken by students and administrators. News comes hourly on your news leader here in northeastern Berks County, KUR.
Darlene!
Not now. I'm watching my stories.
Dad,
Yeah, boy.
I need to tell you something.
What?
I have these feelings.
Feelings? What feelings?
Well, the thing is, I like boys.
What? You're gay? Aw, son. I'm proud of you. Took lots of guts. And please know that both me and your mom are here for you. After all, you're our son, and we love you no matter what.
Need someone who understands? If you're a lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning youth, Lyric can help. At Lyric, young people get the support they need to come out early and follow their heart. I'm Armistead Maupin. Please join me in supporting Lyric. To learn more and make a donation, visit lyric.org today.
And for GLBTQ resources on campus, visit the KU GLBTQ Center, Old Main, Room 4.
Monday nights from 10 to 12, KUR gets a bit crazier. Whether you're looking for rock, or maybe some electronic dance music, or anything else in between. That means Split Wires, hosted by the Mad Hatter, is the show for you. Tune in live at www.kutztown.edu/KUR. KUR, the radio voice of Kutztown University.
Welcome back. You're listening to Tough Topics. I'm Trisha. I'm the main host, and today I have with me Dr. Fennelly, who is a WGS professor, and we are just kind of defining some terms that you might hear, like toxic masculinity, white supremacy, feminism, some gender-based violence, LGBTQ. So we're going to keep moving. The next one that we're going to really kind of maybe talk about is toxic masculinity.
Yeah, so it's a tricky topic, and it's a term that I think is widely misused, widely misconstrued. I think that it's one which immediately seizes on the masculine part and assumes that those who are using it hate men, want to see their extinction. Those who are excessively critical. But toxic masculinity really is a way of speaking to some of the approaches that we take as a culture in affirming the more assertive and aggressive parts of what it means not just to be a man, but also to be a boy. I think the toxic part comes in because it is so widespread. There is a way in which we need, as a culture, to come to terms with how men are being pigeonholed into behaviors and roles that are not reflective of who they are as human beings, but instead are made to adopt behaviors that are not always nice or comfortable or respectful. I think we could talk about it at length.
It could be its own show, really.
It
really could be with it's such a buzzword. But I think you did a great job at just generalizing the root of it.
Yeah.
Like, it turned into such a hateful term, but really we are just trying to tackle this issue with boys being raised into this position of extra privilege, extra power, and being told that they cannot be a human being. Really,
Yes.
that's at the heart of it. A really good documentary that discusses these issues is called The Mask You Live In. We will be doing a screening of that on Tuesday, October 22nd from 5:30 to 9 p.m. in MSU 183. It is fantastic. It's a documentary about boys and young men as they struggle to remain true to themselves while dealing with America's strict definition of masculinity. Free pizza will be provided, so free food is always a good thing. So come out for the free pizza and please watch this because it's really informative. I had to watch it for one of my WGS classes, so it's still current, it's still relevant.
Yes.
It's amazing. So
I'm thrilled it's being shown.
Yeah.
I've used it not only in WGS courses, but in writing courses where we practice expository writing, and part of that is looking for patterns. And this has become a pattern. This way of being and raising boys is becoming a problematic pattern. One of the examples that they show in that film is the message young boys are sent about not crying. Don't cry. It's certainly one that I can relate to because as a 39-year-old, I have never seen my own father cry. And I learned that the reason for this is because when his own father died when he was 6 years old, he was told, boys don't cry. It's as simple as that. And it was a way, I think, at the time for family members to shield his mother from having to deal with her own grief and her children's grief. But I think that it was a message that was so firmly cemented that he is really only comfortable expressing positive and happy emotions, and there's simply nothing that is sad or complicated or, something that's going to reflect who you are as a full human being. And that is a message that I still think is repeatedly given to boys. I have a 2-year-old boy myself, and it is one that I am very conscious of not sending. So
that just reminded me of that. This toxic masculinity and gender roles in itself have a very big history. I'm not as fully knowledgeable on the full-length history, but just generally, male gender roles, they were the breadwinners. Right. They went out and worked. They did all these different things. And women, they're the protector. Yep. And women were the ones that were staying home, cooking, cleaning, raising the family and all that. Right. Well, we're in 2019 now. Like, it does not make sense for us to keep those gender roles. And
correct.
When women are just as equally able to go out and work and provide the income and all of that. And so why should we still expect men to uphold those gender roles and to uphold this weird, masculine mask? Like, it really is a mask because at the end of the day, they are humans.
That's
and they feel emotions just the same as everybody else. So they go to counseling just as much as women do. So it doesn't make sense for us to keep being like, don't cry.
And it's
that's
not practical.
helpful.
No, it's not helpful. It's not practical. When my father's father died, then my grandmother did have to assume all those roles as the breadwinner, as the protector. She had 4 young children. I cannot imagine that in an age where women were not expected to work, who were actively discouraged from entering the workforce. But she had to go out, get a job, find a way to provide for her family. So the practical value of this, even if there are those who still bristle at this idea of questioning or reevaluating gender roles, there is a practical element to this, that we are all in this together. And to shut down talents or skills or aspects of human emotion for one versus the other is not, like you said, it's not helpful at all.
Yeah. This actually can lead us right into some LGBTQ and some gender equality and gender-based violence. Gender roles, you will see them pop up even in the LGBTQ community, especially within the trans community, because when you are transitioning, it's hyper, what I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for, like hyper femininity or hyper masculinity is a huge thing within that community, because they want the validation of whatever gender that they are identifying with. Even my own boyfriend has experienced that, and it's tough, because you have to come to understand that you don't have to act a certain gender role or act as a certain gender to be validated.
Correct.
I'm going to define the LGBTQ thing, because everyone's like, what does that stand for?
Right.
So LGBTQ stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning. Now, there's even more that can be added on to that. There's you'll hear people also use LGBTQ plus IA or LGBTQ plus. There's been additions added to it to be more inclusive and, just to account for other spectrums and things like that. And then some gender-based violence. That is a huge one. And we'll definitely, next time I have this show will be in October, and October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So that will already be a gender-based show, really, for violence. But the I don't think everyone's aware that the LGBTQ community faces violence at a lot higher of a rate than people that don't identify with that community.
Yes, they're huge, at a huge risk.
At least like 50% higher, I believe.
Simply for existing.
Yeah,
that's
just
what
existing
I think we
as their
need to come
identity.
to terms with,
Yeah.
Right. Simply for existing. And reading even the debate in academic circles over when a student, for example, asks to go by a preferred name or a pronoun, the fact that has caused some to lash out, it just shows that's the tip of the iceberg to show what this community is up against. These are simple, in my mind at least, right? I understand this is in my mind. These are simple requests for respect and equality and understanding during such transitions. And we're not according it. We're not giving it as freely as we need to be in our culture. And I've even been reading debates recently. Why are there gay pride parades? Let's have a straight pride parade. And that goes back to what we discussed earlier regarding privilege, of being able to recognize that there are these positions of unequal power that need to be addressed. And that part of the reason for such parades are coming together as a community. It's not always a celebratory process. It is one that needs to be supported. It is one where people come together to share their stories of abuse or of rejection. And those spaces need to be safe, and they are not right now.
They are not, no. Just yesterday, my boyfriend had an issue. Well, not necessarily an issue, but someone questioned him if he was in the right bathroom.
Oh, here we go.
And it was so funny because I texted him back and I said, I find it hilarious that, when you go to, so this is my main reference for this, but if you go to a brewery, for say, they don't have full, like, big bathrooms. They have, like, a one-person bathroom with a, like, male and a woman symbol, and they're like, we don't care.
This is it.
But
this
no
is
one
the
gets
one
upset
bathroom.
about that.
Right. Nobody
no
gets
one
upset
says
about that.
anything about when it's a multi-gender bathroom.
Right.
But then as soon as when they're separated,
yes,
we're like, oh no, you can't go into a bathroom that you don't look like you should be in. Like, it's...
Or I've heard people say, I don't want to go into the gender-inclusive bathroom because then people will assume something about me. Or, I mean, just kind of as a newsflash, every bathroom in every home is gender-inclusive. Right?
Yeah.
We don't put those signs up, and we don't question who's doing what. But this is an example of something that is a basic right, a basic human need, is being politicized, and I can see how it's politicized on both ends of our political spectrum, but it's breaking down then when it leads to the violence. It leads to the characterizations, the caricatures. It leads to the stereotypes. It leads to damaging rhetoric that reflects more ignorance than anything else. And so, just to reiterate, for those who might be joining the show now, having a show like this about these tough topics is essential right now, and listening to them and then extending that conversation outward is essential, because it's the only thing that's going to help us. Not everybody's going to go to college and take these courses or encounter these texts. Not everybody's going to be in workplaces that are going to stand up for you and support you and uphold the law, frankly. So cultivating your own personal toolbox of what can I do when I feel threatened, what can I do when I feel not supported is really critical.
And also just how to be a better ally.
Yes.
If you have friends that are in the community, in the LGBTQ community, it's important to understand your privilege and how you can possibly help them out of dangerous situations or out of discriminationist situations.
Yeah.
As someone, I'm a white female and I pass as heterosexual, so that gives me a lot of privilege in a lot of situations, and it gives me a voice that not everybody has. And I think that hopefully us mentioning those loopholes in some of these thought processes can really help. Like you mentioned, like at home, you don't label your bathroom. It's not like you're going to use the one downstairs and my husband's going to go use the one upstairs, or like, things like that. It's finding those little loopholes and why we're continuing this echo chamber of bad rhetoric, literally, like hurtful.
It is.
And like harmful rhetoric.
I see this on Facebook a lot. I really do. And even if the person themselves isn't speaking this way, they're posting a meme or they're posting something that clearly reveals their uncomfortable approach or attitude towards the situation. And so I remember seeing one related to the bathroom laws that started in North Carolina, and the person was fully in support of these laws, and posting some cartoon about a predator, of course a male, lurking in a woman's bathroom and attacking a young child, right? And this is the mindset, right, that this threat is very real. When in fact, if you do your research, right, those situations are so far in the minority and have absolutely nothing to do with being a trans person. So really trying to help people see the fault in the logic, and walk them through the research and walk them through real world scenarios is essential to make them recognize, hey, this is fueling a stereotype that has no basis in reality.
100%. And I want to throw this out here because this just reminded me of this. The idea that a trans person is going to attack a little child is like ridiculous. And I'm going to throw this statistic out there to kind of remind you that that's really not going to happen. And what's more likely going to happen is that a trans person has a 64% chance, or 64% of trans individuals have faced sexual violence.
Right.
So
They are likely to be the victims. Yes.
Yes. And speaking of victims, let's also maybe touch a little bit on victim blaming and how that has also been a really big thing that has popped up between the Kavanaugh thing, the trial with that, and just generally how we have a president that has openly mentioned that he has sexually assaulted people.
Yes.
And we've just kind of been like, it's fine.
Yes.
For anyone that's not aware, victim blaming is literally when you blame the person that was assaulted for you're like, well, it's your fault as to why you got assaulted. That if you didn't go home with that person, or if you didn't drink with that person, or if you didn't wear what you were wearing, you wouldn't have been assaulted. But that totally disregards the fact that no one ever deserves to be assaulted. And that period. Like, period. No one.
Period at the end of that
there's
statement.
A period after that one, but people struggle to comprehend that. And in the workshops that I give, one of the things that I mention is that you're going to hear people victim blame, and that victim blaming happens because we want to give this false sense that it's not going to happen to us.
Exactly.
It's so easy to fall into this, well, I'm not going to get sexually assaulted because I don't wear that kind of outfit.
I don't put myself in that position. I don't do this. I don't do that. We are a country that still has our puritanical roots. We are very comfortable in our own self-righteousness until it happens to us, or until it happens to someone we know. So, the campaign, It's On Us, really is so perfectly titled because it acknowledges that everybody has a responsibility, not just for themselves, but for others.
To create an environment in which sexual assault is not okay.
Yes,
And that
and
it's
it is not
going
normalized.
To be, yes. So another part that I like to mention in my workshops is rape culture.
Yes.
This is probably another term that has been popping up recently. Rape culture is literally, it's a society in which sexual violence and those kind of related things are normalized. And I always mention in my workshops that I'm not saying that the students that are sitting in that presentation are normalizing it, but that as a society, we have sent a message that it is okay to sexually assault people or to abuse someone in a relationship. And understanding how we talk and think about rape can really, really impact your understanding of rape culture and just how maybe you're adding to rape culture.
Absolutely.
I read some interesting articles about how men get really upset and really defensive about the idea that they could be contributing to rape culture. And we're not saying that all men are adding to rape culture, but we're saying that there are certain men out there that are. And that can't keep happening.
Absolutely. There's a TED Talk by Jean Kilbourne that I show my classes in which she, her focus is on sexism and gender issues as represented in advertisements. And she fully acknowledges that the vast majority of men are not violent. But, right, when you do have that behavior from the top down, being condoned, not being prosecuted, not even taken seriously, then we have this much larger problem. And so she also talks about the importance of allies and the importance of listening with compassion and supporting victims and not blaming them and not doubting them from the get-go. This is what I really struggled with when watching the Kavanaugh hearings was, as someone who has not been sexually assaulted, the level of discomfort that I felt on Christine Blasey Ford's behalf was so high. I could only imagine what it was like for those who have been sexually assaulted, who have experienced either what she did or something similar to it. And seeing the public outcry against her must have made that feeling 10 times worse. And that's what I was really disappointed in, was culturally, again, we seemed very at ease with blaming her and finding fault or doubting her and giving him a pass. Not just 100%. A pass into the Supreme Court, but a pass in our own minds.
Well, that and how he behaved through that whole trial.
Absolutely. That in and of itself spoke volumes to me, that if you had your doubts, if you were sitting there saying, well, I'm not sure, again, from a logical position, right? Because I think there's a way in which we have to look at this as a full picture. If you had your doubts about whether or not he did this, just look at his behavior during the trial itself. The yelling, the shouting, the gesticulating, going on and on about beer, berating those who are questioning him, who are in positions of leadership, but who he immediately discounted because of their gender. It was hugely telling. And again, it was not only ignored, but accepted.
100%.
That is what's terrifies me.
That's rape culture. Like,
that is rape culture.
100% rape culture. And so that's a prime example. So a main example of rape culture is the injustice for survivors and the lack of accountability for perpetrators.
Yes.
I mean, Brock Turner was a beautiful example of that.
Absolutely.
Another Baylor frat president was also, I forget what his name is, but he also got
no
off
consequences.
super. Yeah, there's just never consequences. It's the rape jokes that you hear. On my 21st birthday when I went out, I literally had a guy joke with me that he drugged my drink, and I looked at him straight in the face and was like, that's not funny.
Right.
And then he tried to pull it off and was like, here, have some of my drink. And I'm like, no,
I don't want anybody's drink.
That. No, I'm fine. I'm fine here by myself. But yeah, it's the rape jokes. It's defending the rape jokes.
Yes.
And that it's just a joke. Well, no, it's not.
Right.
Because it's real.
Right. We were told after the story broke about Trump with being on the bus, I forget with who at this point, we were told that was locker room talk. And that we should just accept it as such. The irony here is the day that story broke was the day that Kutztown was hosting the Pesci Women's Consortium Conference. And we were heading into that presidential election, and I presented a paper actually about Hillary Clinton and some of the rhetoric surrounding her. And I went home, and that story was on the news, and I thought, this is it. This is the end for Trump. And looking back now and seeing how that was actually the beginning is unbelievable to me. It is. It's wild. It's wild. So
there's still moments about this whole presidency and just where we are currently in 2019, because I've mentioned multiple times now that we're in 2019.
Yep.
We're trying to be progressive. This is where we should be.
Yep.
But we still have so far to go.
Yes.
And that just, it's still a lot of work ahead of us. I want to go back to the gender-based violence very quickly.
Sure.
Just to define this a little bit more, gender-based violence is violence that happens to someone based on their gender.
Right.
So that's the domestic violence that you're going to see. It's the violence that you see within the LGBTQ community. The reason why I wanted to come back to this just because for the next show when I talk about domestic violence, I wanted to make sure that, I'll also define it then, but it's fine.
Absolutely.
So, but this gender-based violence is going to pop up. And it has popped up more now that we have a political climate that almost allows for it again.
Because I'm not so sure that this is about politics anymore. It's being condoned, like you said, by the political climate that we're in. But this now does seem to be more of a human issue, a social justice issue, and paying attention to those issues within our community, I do think at least is a proactive position to take. Because I think what happened after the last election and after the Kavanaugh hearings is many people felt powerless and disengaged and discouraged. And trust me when I say I do feel that at least once a day. But, right, then I come back to what you just said. There is so much work that needs to be done. Real, concrete, feet on the ground work that needs to be done. And so I think for those who are listening, asking themselves how they can either participate or contribute or listen in their communities is essential right now. These do not have to be big acts like organizing a march or a protest. They can be very small steps that will have a huge impact on those around them. And that's really what I hope people start to think about.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, is that we get so discouraged when the big things happen and we kind of feel this stuck feeling. But it can just be as simple as getting involved with It's On Us here at Kutztown, and making a visual presence within that organization. It's possibly getting involved with the Feminist Majority Leadership Alliance, which is our feminist club on campus. It is maybe even taking a trip to a women's march to experience that and to just show your solidarity with women. It's trying to have better conversations with your friends in the community and saying, hey, how can I be a better ally to you, because you deserve that,
right? And
I want to respect you, and I want you to have more respect from society. It's handing the mic over to someone that you don't have to talk for anymore.
That's right.
And giving them the voice. And that kind of goes back to just simply asking your friends, hey, what do you need?
Yeah.
Asking, anyone, what do you need, is always a great start. So I appreciate you being on the show today, Dr. Fennelly.
Thank you for having me. It's
been fantastic. Yeah. I think we talked about some really awesome stuff today, and hopefully we defined some good things that, clarified some stuff.
Thank you for tackling these tough topics. I just cannot say how grateful I am that you're doing this.
Thanks.
Sure.
Programming on KUR provided to you in part by the Northeast Berks Chamber of Commerce, 610-683-8860. Checking headlines, Kutztown University was recently named to Washington Monthly's 2019 America's Best Colleges for Student Voting. KU is among 80 schools to be recognized from a pool of nearly 1,500 colleges and universities. This is KU's second straight year of inclusion in the annual rankings. A part of Washington Monthly's College Guide and Rankings, which rates colleges and universities on their contributions to social mobility, research, and public service, this is a first-of-its-kind list of the schools doing the most to turn students into citizens. KU's inclusion on the list demonstrates the commitment Kutztown has made to promote civic engagement among the student body, encouraging students to vote and actively participate in community decisions. News comes hourly on your news leader here in northeastern Berks County, KUR Kutztown.
Hello, my name is Professor Thursday, and I'm inviting you to take my class, The History of Punk. In this class, we take a look at the underbelly of punk music, its roots, its influences, and its many offshoots from the 1950s to today. And after class, check out my Facebook page at Professor Thursday for updates and bonus materials. So go to class and learn more every Sunday at 10 p.m. right here on KUR, the radio voice of Kutztown University.
You're listening to Tough Topics with me, Trisha, and we just had on Dr. Fennelly, and she helped me define some really important terms that will possibly pop up in future shows. I'm just going to wrap up here. I have some more events that I can plug for you, and before I do that, I do want to let you know of what next show's topic will be. Our next show will be in October. It'll be the first Thursday of October, and if you did not know, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so I will be having Stacy Jordan. She is our Safe Berks campus advocate with me to interview, and we'll be talking about domestic violence and relationship violence, and we'll also touch on some violence that happens within the LGBTQ community. We will also be talking about some domestic homicide as well, because that's something that we don't talk about enough. And yeah, so that will be a super... It's going to be a tough show. That's a very personal show for me as well, and it's just never an easy thing to really talk about. So, but that's the point of this show, is to talk about some, of the tougher things. So some more events that are coming up. I almost forgot to plug this really big thing that is happening at the end of the month. It is our third annual Gender and Sexual Minorities Conference. It is happening Friday, September 27th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's going to happen at the MSU. And our theme for this year is Experiences and Understanding Your Journey. Our keynote is going to be Ray Senyarhi. That's going to be our keynote at 10 a.m. And he is actually going to be doing a live painting, and that's going to be super cool. So even if you can't really make the conference, maybe try to have some time to come see the live painting being done. That's going to be a really neat feature. And we are also going to be celebrating, and this has popped up throughout the show, It's On Us. It's On Us is more information about that. It's a national organization that was created soon to be 5 years ago by the Obama administration. And it really was that administration realized that sexual assault on college campuses was super prevalent, and they were like, we got to do something about this. So they started It's On Us, and we will be celebrating the 5-year anniversary on Thursday, September 19th from 11 to 2 in the Women's Center, which is Old Main 126. We'll be having some free cupcakes, and if you take the pledge, we'll be giving out some free t-shirts and things like that. And for the LGBTQ events, it looks like this is going to take us into October. We'll be having the National Coming Out Day Awareness Fair and speaker from 11 to 2 in the Old Main Concourse, and then also at 7 p.m. So from 11 to 2, there will be interactive activities and displays aimed at understanding and celebrating the coming out process of the LGBTQ plus individuals. And then at 7 p.m., Coming Out Day speaker will happen. We have not announced that speaker yet, so keep an eye out on that. So I'm really glad that you listened in, even if it was for half or, for 5 minutes. I just appreciate that you listened to me at all. And tune in next time, the first Thursday in October, and I'll see you then. This has been Tough Topics with Trisha.